The quiet suburban harmony of Jesse and David Miller's life had always been a source of comfort. Their world was one of manicured lawns, weekend barbecues, and the gentle, predictable rhythm of a loving marriage. At the center of it was Benji, a golden retriever with fur the color of honey and a disposition to match. For 5 years, he had been their furry child, their constant companion. But all that was about to change. The day Jesse gave birth to their daughter Lily, a new, dissonant note entered their perfect symphony, and Benji was the one playing it. It started subtly, a low growl when the baby cried too loudly, a refusal to leave the nursery, but soon it escalated into a full-blown obsession. Benji refused to let Lily sleep alone. If the nursery door was closed, a frantic, desperate barking would echo through the house until it was opened. If Jesse or David tried to move him, he would plant his feet, a low rumble in his chest, his eyes fixed on the crib with an unnerving intensity. One evening, after another sleepless night orchestrated by the dog's anxiety, David felt a snap. He gently lifted a sleeping Lily from her crib to bring her to their own room, only for Benji to block the doorway, hackles raised. It wasn't aggression, it was a desperate, silent plea. Frustrated and exhausted, David nudged the dog aside. The moment the door clicked shut, the house erupted with Benji's frantic howls. That was the moment David finally understood. This wasn't simple jealousy. This was fear. A profound terror that the dog could sense, but he couldn't see. A cold dread washed over him. He looked at his sleeping daughter, so fragile in his arms, and then back at the vibrating nursery door. With a trembling hand, he picked up his phone and dialed the police. "There's something wrong in my house," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what it is, but my dog does." He expected a dismissal, a placating response. Instead, the dispatcher's voice turned sharp. "Stay on the line, sir. We're sending everyone we can." The first officer to arrive, a veteran named Peterson, found David standing on his lawn, a sentinel in the blue and red strobing lights. Peterson's face was a mask of professional calm, but his eyes widened as he took in the scene. Benji was inside, his barks now sharp and directed, not at the door, but at the empty nursery window. "How could a dog know?" Peterson murmured, more to himself than to David. He clapped a hand on David's shoulder. "You should be grateful for an animal like that, Mr. Miller." Most people wouldn't have listened, but gratitude was buried under a mountain of guilt. David knew he had failed. He was the protector, the father, yet he had been sleeping soundly while his dog waged a lonely, terrifying war. Within 10 minutes, the quiet street looked like a scene from a blockbuster movie. At least a dozen police cars lined the curb, their lights painting the neighborhood in chaotic flashes. Officers swarmed the property, their quiet efficiency a stark contrast to the panic brewing in David's chest. When Jessie arrived home from a late-night grocery run, she froze, her face paling at the sight. They were ushered inside, the questions coming in a calm but relentless barrage. The couple, dazed and confused, tried to answer, but they had no idea of the true gravity of the situation. The reason the officers were there was disturbing enough, but the revelation that Benji's strange behavior had begun the moment Jessie's pregnancy became visible was what sent a chill down Sergeant Peterson's spine. They had trusted the wrong person. The question was, who, and why did Benji refuse to let Lily sleep alone? The story of their fear began 9 months earlier. Jessie and David had wanted a child for years, and the positive pregnancy test felt like a miracle. Their joy, however, was tinged with a single worry: Benji. Jessie had spent hours scrolling through horror stories on parenting forums, tales of beloved pets turning aggressive, unable to accept a new baby. "He'll be fine," David would reassure her, stroking Benji's soft ears. "He's part of this family." But deep down, They both knew the unspoken truth. If Benji couldn't accept their child, he would have to go. The thought was a painful shard of glass in both their hearts. Benji seemed to sense the change in Jessie before any physical signs appeared. He grew clingy, following her from room to room. Then, as her belly began to swell, his behavior shifted from affectionate to alarming. He would sit before her, head cocked, and let out a single, sharp bark directed at her stomach. Then another. It wasn't playful. It was a warning. What was he sensing? Was he threatened by the unborn child, or could he sense something wrong with the baby itself? The uncertainty was a corrosive acid eating away at Jessie's peace of mind. She begged David to take Benji to the vet. "We have to know," she pleaded, tears in her eyes. "I can't live like this." The veterinarian, a kind woman named Dr. Evans, gave Benji a clean bill of health. "Physically, he's perfect," she said, her brow furrowed in thought. "Dogs can sense hormonal changes, shifts in routine, but this is different. This is a targeted response. It's almost as if he's trying to alert you to something about the pregnancy." She suggested Jessie get a thorough checkup, just in case. That recommendation sent Jessie into a spiral of panic. She called her doctor, her voice shaking, and was told to come in immediately. Overwhelmed, she called the one person who had been her rock throughout the entire pregnancy, her best friend, Anne. Anne had been Jessie's confidant for over a decade. They had met in college and were inseparable. Anne, perpetually single and with a flexible remote job, had practically moved in when Jessie announced her pregnancy, helping with cooking, cleaning, and offering a constant stream of support. She arrived within minutes of Jessie's frantic call, her calm presence a soothing balm on Jessie's frayed nerves. At the hospital, a battery of tests, ultrasounds, blood work, stress tests, all came back normal. "You and the baby are perfectly healthy," the doctor assured her. The news should have been a relief, but it only deepened the mystery. Back home, Jessie collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. "I don't want to choose, Anne," she whispered. "I can't lose Benji." Anne wrapped her arms around her friend. "You won't have to," she said softly. "I'll be here. When you go back to work, I'll be the full-time babysitter. I can watch him, make sure everything is okay. I have all the time in the world." The offer was a lifeline. Jessie felt a wave of immense gratitude for her friend. There would always be someone watching over them. A few weeks later, Lily was born, a perfect, healthy baby girl. For a while, with both parents home, a fragile peace settled over the house. Benji seemed to have accepted his new role, a furry shadow to the new infant. But the moment Jessie and David returned to work, leaving Lily in Anne's capable hands, the erratic behavior returned with a vengeance. Anne would call with concerning reports. "He won't let her sleep in the crib alone," she'd say, a note of exasperated affection in her voice. "He just lies on the floor right beside her. He won't budge." David thought it was sweet, a sign of a canine guardian. "He's just being protective," he told Jessie. Then came the frantic call. "He attacked me!" Anne cried into the phone. "I just moved him so I could change Lily's diaper, and he snapped at me." When David came home, he saw the red marks on Anne's arm. Overprotective was one thing, aggression was another. With a heavy heart, David took Benji back to the vet. Dr. Evans listened intently. "A dog like Benji doesn't just snap," she said, looking David straight in the eye. "Something provoked him. He doesn't trust the situation when you're not there." Then she said something that made David's defenses rise. "Dogs are excellent judges of character, Mr. Miller. Perhaps the problem isn't the dog. Perhaps he doesn't trust you to keep Lily safe." David left the clinic, offended and angry. But the vet's words had planted a seed of doubt. It couldn't be him, could it? He started observing. He saw the pure, unadulterated love between Lily and Benji. The baby's giggles when the dog licked her toes. The dog's contented sighs as he lay at the foot of her playpen. He couldn't give up on this dog. Then Anne called again, her voice trembling. "He bit me, David." This time it was for real, and in that instant, everything clicked into place with horrifying clarity. A pattern emerged from the chaos. Benji was only aggressive, only truly frantic when Anne was around. When it was just the family, he was watchful but calm. Anne was the trigger. He confronted Jessie with his theory. "That's insane, David," she cried, her eyes flashing with anger. "Anne is my best friend. She loves Lily." To prove him wrong, she added, "And Benji acts this way at night too, when Anne isn't even here. So explain that." Her words, meant to dismiss his theory, had the opposite effect. They were the key. But Jessie, fiercely loyal, gave him an ultimatum. "Figure this out, David. Prove it, or Benji goes. I won't risk our daughter's safety for your paranoid fantasies." Desperate, David came up with a plan. He told Jessie he was installing a security camera in the nursery to monitor Benji's behavior. It was a half-truth. He was monitoring everything. Anne's reaction was telling. "Cameras? In the house?" she asked, forcing a light laugh. "Isn't that a bit much? It feels like you don't trust me." The comment was aimed at making him feel guilty, but it only solidified his suspicion. He spent hours combing through the daytime footage. He saw Benji, a constant furry sentinel, positioning himself between Anne and the baby. He saw Anne always smiling, always gentle, but he also saw fleeting moments, a flicker of annoyance when the dog blocked her path, a coldness in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. The confrontation was explosive. David, unable to contain his rage, cornered Anne in the kitchen. "What are you doing to my daughter?" he roared. Anne's carefully constructed mask of sweetness shattered. "How dare you!" she shrieked, her voice venomous. "That stupid dog has been a menace from the start, and for the record, he acts just as crazy at night when I'm not here." Just then, Jessie walked in. The ensuing argument was brutal, ending with Jesse's ultimatum ringing in his ears. But as David stood in the wreckage of his kitchen, Anne's words echoed in his mind. He acts just as crazy at night. He had never checked the night footage. He booted up his laptop, his heart hammering. He navigated to the archive folder. The files for the last several weeks were there, but each one was 0 bytes, corrupted, wiped, every single night. Someone with technical skill was deleting the recordings. A cold, professional dread settled in his bones. This wasn't just a threat. This was an operation. Drawing on the skills from his job as a systems architect for a major national security contractor, he set a trap. He configured the system to send a second, encrypted, real-time feed to a secure cloud server he controlled. He was going to catch this ghost. The next day, he could barely focus at work. As soon as he got home, he locked himself in his office and loaded the footage from the encrypted backup. His breath caught in his throat. Shortly after 2 a.m., a figure, clad in black, slipped silently through the nursery window. They moved with a dancer's grace, a predator's silence. The figure didn't go near the crib. Instead, it moved to the wall adjacent to his home office. David watched, mesmerized and horrified, as the figure pressed a section of the wall which slid open to reveal a hidden compartment. This was the moment he called the police. When the officers arrived and David showed them the footage, the atmosphere in the house shifted from a domestic dispute to a federal investigation. Peterson, the first officer on the scene, immediately recognized the intruder's fluid, professional movements. When David explained Benji's relentless barking at that specific wall, everything fell into place. They didn't use a sledgehammer. A tech specialist brought in a handheld density scanner. It beeped insistently over the exact spot from the video. A pry bar, a click, and the panel swung open, revealing a small, built-in safe. While they waited for a safecracker, a background check was run on Ann Anderson. The report came back, and it was chilling. No birth certificate, no tax records, no driver's license issued before 10 years ago. The Ann Anderson that Jessie had known for a decade did not exist. Jessie sank to the floor, her mind reeling through a decade of shared secrets and laughter, now all tainted with the bitter taste of deception. "How?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Our whole friendship, it was all a lie." The safecracker finally opened the heavy steel door. Inside was a spy's treasure trove, stacks of cash in multiple currencies, a set of sophisticated lockpicks, several passports with Anne's face and different names, and a small high-tech device David recognized with a jolt, a data cloning tool designed to copy entire hard drives in seconds. The police captain knelt beside Jessie and David. "The woman you know as Anne is Elizabeth Holmes," he said, his voice grave. "She's a freelance industrial and state-level espionage agent, wanted in 17 countries. David, because of your work, your home network has access to sensitive national security infrastructure. She wasn't after your daughter. She was after your data. She's been trying to crack your system for months." It all made sense. The wiped footage, her attempts to get close to his office. Benji hadn't been sensing a threat to Lily directly. He had been sensing the threat of the intruder, the alien scent of Elizabeth Holmes that lingered in the house long after she was gone. He was protecting his home, his pack, from the predator in their midst. The dog had cracked a multi-million-dollar espionage case. The epilogue was written in airport security footage. Alerted by the police, federal agents apprehended Elizabeth Holmes as she attempted to board a flight to a non-extradition country disguised as a brunette businesswoman. She confessed everything. In the quiet aftermath, life for the Millers slowly returned to a new kind of normal. The trust in the outside world was shattered, but the bond within their family, including its four-legged member, was forged in steel. Benji was hailed as a hero. He never stopped watching over Lily, but the frantic edge to his protection was gone. He had won his war. Lily grew up hearing the story of the dog who saved her family. She and Benji were inseparable, two souls bound by a silent, incredible secret. And David and Jessie learned the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes, the most loyal and perceptive member of the family is the one who can't speak a word, and they learned to listen.